my bedtime routine, the first thing I do that is my signal to myself it is bedtime is I drink magnesium. Drinking magnesium in the evening has changed my life in so many ways. So I have a big warm cup of magnesium. I take it hot, and that's like my nighttime tea. And then I will crawl into bed. I've usually already, gotten ready for bed, and I read. And that is pretty much what I do. Sometimes if I have a lot on my mind, I will journal. And if I have any unanswered questions, I'll use my pendulum. Usually evening is my pendulum time. So I'll answer questions with my pendulum, and I'll balance my chakras. I just do some quick energy work to release the day, and then I fall asleep. I ask my pendulum everything. Honestly, look, the truth is I can be a little toxic with my pendulum sometimes. But obviously pendulums are for yes or no questions. So, but they're for much more than that. But when I'm asking my pendulum questions, I'm usually first either connecting with my physical body or my soul self, and I will ask it for guidance. That's usually just kind of double checking what I'm already feeling intuitively. So I more so now use my pendulum just to double check what I'm feeling, if I'm unsure if it's a logical thought or if it's an intuitive thought, which is usually if it's come to me in the form of like more of a 3D conversation, where I might be wondering, was that the sign, and is this really my intuition, or am I just feeling strongly about this because so and so said this, which often can be one and the same. But I usually just do quick double checks there, and then I think the main questions I ask are usually just about any energies that I'm not seeing that need to be rebalanced. So I primarily use it as a rebalancing tool. I don't use it as much for like questions the way I used to when I first started, when I first learned about pendulums, and when I first got my hand on my pendulum. I could not put it down. I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed, but I would probably use it for 5 hours a day. I was so into it. I couldn't believe this thing. I couldn't believe how it was accurate about everything, and it's just such a cheat sheet. I think everybody should get a pendulum, and especially if you are learning to trust your intuition, which at that time I was really learning to trust my intuition. I leaned heavily on it, and it's just such a fun way to move energy, and you can see it, so it gives that tangible application to it. So big fan. Here's maybe a hot take. I don't know if it's hot or not. I think that a lot of things in the wellness space have made people more unwell because it's causing more confusion and more anxiety. And there's such a thing as knowing too much. And when you're getting too much information, you can get really in your head about things that are intuitive. And so information that was meant to be a helpful guiding light for people has now turned into too much, and it's turned into information people want to make money off of. And so everybody wants a really controversial topic to talk about and have their hot take on, and a lot of people don't really believe these things, but they just want to be controversial to blow up, or they do believe these things, but then their mind changes because things are never that black and white, and they don't want to be honest about that. So I think that anything can work in wellness and everything can work, but I do think that a lot of things that are popular now, it's just too much. And when it's too much, it is actually making people more unwell. So when I'm performing attunements for Ahai energy, I do a really deep clearing on people so that they can actually hold that frequency. And I'm basically turning on that energy within all parts of their energy body. And so I'm always looking at patterns of where is that energy getting stuck, or where is it harder for me to get it to link up or activate or hold. And the most common place, always, all rounds, but it was really coming up with this most recent round, is in the sacral chakra. I've really got to do work to get that to activate, and when it does, the entire energy body lights up. I mean, that's our life force energy, the sacral, but to me what that's indicating is that is the place where we're holding on to the most energetic junk, and the place where everybody should be focusing the most on, because when you clear that place, when you clear the sacral, that does have a big ripple out effect everywhere else, because it is your life force energy. And so that is just telling me that most people need a lot more work on their sacral, because it is holding on to so many toxins. The areas of the body that the sacral chakra correlates with are connected to how we process toxins, and so our sacral needs a lot of extra support. The same way we know our liver needs extra support for it to be able to support us in detoxification, our sacrals are doing the same thing. And so that place needs a lot more clearing. When you feel like you know there is something more, or you're trying to figure out how to be happy and you don't know what it is, there's two things I would say. One is to realize that if you're unsure, this sounds basic, but it needs to be pointed out. If you're unsure, it is not in your current field of awareness. It's as simple as that. And it's important for you to recognize that, because that leads into the real step, part 2, which is you have to try new things. You need to be around new people. You need to go new places. You need to fill your field with newness. Try things you wouldn't normally try. And that will guide you on the journey, because you'll be aligned with the things that are gonna set you on the path of that happiness. So you really just have to try new things. And it's important to understand it is not in your current field of awareness, or you wouldn't have this question. So stop looking in your current field of awareness for the answer, because you're going to drive yourself crazy. Anyone who is carrying a burden of a diagnosis, I would say, if you don't want that diagnosis, understand that anything can be healed. I truly believe that. And what helped me the most was going and finding evidence for myself of people who had healed these things. I don't care what it is that you're struggling with. If you're willing to go into the depths of the internet, you will find lots of people who have made the impossible possible, and lots of people who have healed in maybe conventional ways, but mostly non-conventional ways. Whatever it is, people are telling you can't be healed. So recognize that a diagnosis is just a label for certain symptoms, and you can relate to that in whatever way you choose to relate to that. And for me, I let it exist, but understood that those symptoms were my body and my soul wanting something more and wanting healing. And so I went on the path of discovering that healing. I have had a lot of wild things happen in sessions, so it's hard for me to even think of it, because I just am expecting that a little bit. So look, sometimes people can need to give energetic birth to something, and this will often look like bloating. This will be experienced as bloating. And so there was a client who needed to deliver an energetic birth. It ended up being 13 snakes and they just needed to flow out and deliver some codes. So that one, I guess. People might think that their sessions are weird, but they're honestly not. And so I think a lot of people, and I tell them this beforehand, I'm like, don't judge anything that comes out of you, anything that happens. I've seen everything. So obviously there can be a lot of emotional release. There can be a lot of crying, but there can also be a lot of laughing, uncontrollable laughing, and there can also be a lot of body movements. And so I have seen some very wild body movements, not just the energy moving through, but people whose arms just like get pulled up and are just staying there. There can be like a lot of twitching, eyelids fluttering nonstop. There can be all kinds of stuff because people are experiencing this really high frequency flowing through them. And so there can be strange noises that come out. So there's a lot of that, and it's just interesting to see how we respond to that energy flowing through us, and it shows you where blocks are too. And also connects us back to a way that we naturally clear energy is through things like a shaking response, or through things like guttural noises like in our throat, and we have been conditioned out of doing those things to be polite or for whatever reasons. And those are really important parts of energetic release. Shaking work, making your sounds right? But we don't do that a lot, and so sometimes in energy healing sessions that will just naturally get activated to help the body clear it out. The biggest thing that keeps people stuck in a cycle of dating and not feeling like they're finding the person is they're committed to the idea of the person they want to be with, and so they just keep dating a different version of the same person. So you get out of that cycle by being willing to date someone completely out of your comfort zone and being willing to grow. You have to understand that relationships are growth experiences, and the good ones will make you feel vulnerable. So you won't feel like the expert. You won't feel like you are one-upping that person. A lot of people look for dynamics that make them feel comfortable, where they feel like they know more or they're more successful or whatever they can be more at, because it feels safe. It feels like you won't reject me because I'm great. And so for the really good relationships, you have to be willing to be in a dynamic where you're vulnerable, and that person's going to teach you things, and that person is going to mirror things back to you. And that is what's sneakily underneath this. I want to just keep dating what's familiar. Be willing to date someone very outside of your comfort zone, and be willing to learn from people, and that will get you out of that cycle. So when people are trying really hard to fit in and they're adjusting their behavior to make people like them, there is typically a deeper belief that, who they are just isn't good enough at their core. And so they're just trying to adjust to what that other person will like. So there's a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment. People are looking for built-in safety and wanting that external validation that they're worthy. But energetically, a lot of what's going on is they haven't grounded their energy into their body. So this could be they're not fully grounded kind of here on this planet, but a lot of this is fragmented and kind of dispersed energy. When you look at their field, it will be kind of all over the place, and I've got to pull it all in, like pull it back into their body, and you'll see their chakras are kind of like all wacky like that. They're master chameleons, right? And when you are trying to be a chameleon, for some people that's an authentic thing, right? Reflectors in human design, for example. But when you are trying to be a chameleon for a false sense of safety, really, because we know how that ends, people don't really love you for you then. They only know who you've presented yourself to be. But when they're trying to be a chameleon, what that does to your energy field is it just creates a lot of kind of warped coding. And so this will majorly affect your ability to attract anything in, because you're not emitting your authentic signal. You've kind of changed the coding in your field to be whatever you think that person wants to see. You're projecting that out, and so that completely warps your ability to be able to attract in the things that are truly for you. And so it creates this kind of vicious cycle, because people aren't attracting in what they want. It feels hard, so they feel like they have to adjust themselves to get what they think they want, and none of it's authentic, and it just completely disrupts your ability to manifest easily. Oh my God. My dream morning routine would last all day. I wake up, well, it depends on the day, but my morning routine, if I have time, it's adjusted if I have to get somewhere, but I try to push all my meetings until later, or if I have to be somewhere until later. I wake up slowly, and I tongue scrape, I do my oral care, I go out, I have some hibiscus tea. It's usually the first thing I have. And then I usually meditate, and then I will journal, and I will eat my fiber bowl. And then I will do some form of movement, like Pilates or a walk. And then I will sauna, and then I'll cold plunge. And then I will take a shower, and then I will do energy work, and then I start my day.